I should have seen it coming, but I didn't. The prenup. Right before my wedding day, my mother-in-law slipped it into the conversation like it was nothing. And just like that, everything changed. I stared at the document in my hands, feeling my heart race. It was one of those moments where time felt like it froze. The wedding was tomorrow. I was supposed to be excited, happy, about the life I was about to start with James. Instead, I was standing here holding this piece of paper that had the power to tear everything apart. It was a simple prenup, but to me, it felt like a betrayal. Margaret, my soon-to-be mother-in-law, had asked to meet with me earlier that day. I thought it was just to go over last-minute wedding details. I never imagined it would be about this. I think it's best if we get this done now, before the big day, Margaret had said, sliding the prenup across the table with a forced smile. My stomach sank. I looked up at her, trying to keep my emotions in check. She wasn't even looking at me. Her eyes were fixed on the document, as if it were the most important thing in the room. I'm sure James would want this, too. It's just business, Rachel, she added, her voice cold and clinical. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. James and I had talked about our future, about sharing everything. To him, it was about love and trust. But Margaret, she saw things differently. She always had. I had known she wasn't thrilled about me marrying her son, but this. This was a slap in the face. Margaret, why now? Why a prenup right before the wedding? I asked, my voice trembling. She didn't even blink. It's just precautionary, Rachel. You can't be too careful. Her words stung, cutting deeper than I cared to admit. I felt a surge of anger rise up inside me, but I pushed it back. I had to remain calm. James doesn't even know you're doing this, does he? I said, more to myself than to her. Margaret's eyes narrowed slightly, but she didn't answer. It was clear that this was her idea, not James's. He had been busy with wedding preparations, too caught up in everything to notice the subtle ways his mother was trying to control things. The more I thought about it, the more I realized this wasn't about protecting assets. This was about power. Margaret had always had a way of inserting herself into our lives, making sure she was the center of attention. This was her way of reminding me who was really in charge. And it worked. The weight of the prenup felt heavy in my hands, a symbol of everything I feared about my future with James and his mother. I couldn't believe I was standing here, facing this woman, on the brink of marrying her son, and being asked to sign away my rights. I'm not signing this, I said, my voice steady now, even if my heart was pounding in my chest. Margaret didn't flinch. She simply nodded, like she had already expected my answer. I thought you might say that. But just remember, Rachel, this isn't about you. It's about protecting our family's legacy. I wanted to scream at her, to tell her how wrong she was. But instead, I stood up, my hands still shaking as I left the room. I couldn't look at her anymore. I couldn't stay in this house another second. The wedding was supposed to be a fresh start, a new chapter. But now, it felt like everything was falling apart before it had even begun. I needed to talk to James. I needed to know if he even knew about this, if he was on her side or mine. But I couldn't bring myself to go to him just yet. My mind was too clouded with doubt, with the feeling that maybe I had been blind to what was really happening in his family. I didn't want to ruin the wedding, but I couldn't go through with it feeling like this. I didn't know what the future held anymore. All I knew was that tomorrow, I was supposed to marry James. But right now, all I could think about was how my mother-in-law's simple act of bringing a prenup had made everything feel so wrong. The hours leading up to the wedding felt like a blur. I couldn't shake the image of that prenup, the one my mother-in-law had pushed onto me just hours ago. I kept replaying her cold words in my head. It's just business, she had said, like it was some simple transaction. But it wasn't. It was my life, my future. And she was trying to control it before I even had a chance to step into it. I walked down the hallway of the house, trying to steady my breathing. The wedding was tomorrow. Tomorrow, I would marry James, the man I loved. Or at least, that's what I thought. But after today, I wasn't so sure. I had barely seen James all day. He'd been busy with last-minute preparations, talking to the wedding planner, and making sure everything was perfect. I couldn't fault him for that. It was his big day too. But when was it ever my turn to be taken care of? I needed to talk to him. I needed to know if he had any idea about the prenup. I needed to know if he was on my side. I pushed open the door to our bedroom. He was sitting at the edge of the bed, his suit laid out neatly next to him. He was scrolling through his phone, but when he saw me, he put it down and smiled. "Hey, beautiful. How are you holding up?" His voice was warm, but it didn't reach his eyes. It didn't feel like the same James the First had fallen in love with. I hesitated, not sure how to bring it up. I had so many questions, so many emotions swirling inside me, but I couldn't find the words. Instead, I just stood there, staring at him. "James, did you know about the prenup?" I finally asked, my voice shaking. He blinked at me, clearly caught off guard. "What prenup?" I swallowed hard, my stomach turning. "Your mother, she gave me one today. A prenup. Right before the wedding." He sat up straighter, the color draining from his face. "She what?" His voice was sharp now, his confusion matching mine. "She said it was just to protect the family's assets. But it doesn't feel like that. It feels like she doesn't trust me." I felt my chest tighten. "James, I don't want to sign it. I thought we were starting our lives together, but now I feel like I'm just some outsider to her. What does it say about our relationship if she feels the need to do this?" James stood up quickly, his face tense. "I didn't know she was doing this, Rachel. I swear. I thought she was just getting the wedding details sorted." I nodded, but the words didn't make me feel any better. "She's always been controlling, but this feels like something else." He ran his hand through his hair. "I don't know why she would do this, but I promise you, I'm on your side. We're in this together." But his words felt hollow. There was a distance in his eyes that hadn't been there before. It was like I could see the walls he'd built around himself, the walls he had built with his mother. I tried to push the thought aside, but I couldn't. I didn't know who I was marrying anymore. "James," I said, my voice low. "I need you to stand up to her. I need you to choose me over her." The silence between us was heavy. He looked down at the floor, unable to meet my gaze. "I don't want to choose, Rachel," he said softly. "I just want to make everyone happy." "Well, you can't make everyone happy," I snapped, frustration boiling over. "You can't keep making excuses for her. I'm not going to let her walk all over me, James." His expression faltered, but he didn't say anything. It was like he was caught in the middle of something much bigger than either of us, something he didn't want to confront. I turned away, the tears I had been holding back finally starting to fall. I had spent so much time trying to build a life with James, trying to make this wedding perfect. But now, I wasn't even sure if it was going to happen. I wasn't sure if I could go through with it. Maybe Margaret had won. Maybe she had already taken control of everything. The thought was unbearable. I had to get out of here. I had to clear my head before tomorrow. I grabbed my purse and left the room, leaving James sitting on the bed, still staring at the floor. I walked outside into the cool night air, my mind racing. What was I supposed to do? How could I marry a man who couldn't stand up to his mother? I wanted to believe in the love we shared, but right now, I couldn't even recognize it. I didn't know if I could go through with this wedding. Maybe I wasn't ready to marry James. Maybe I wasn't ready to marry into a family that didn't see me as their equal. The wedding was in less than 24 hours. I barely slept, my mind a whirlwind of doubt, fear, and anger. I kept replaying the moment when I found out about the prenup. I kept wondering if I was overreacting. Maybe it was just business, like Margaret had said. But no, it didn't feel like that. It felt like a test, and I was failing. I had tried to shake it off, to focus on the excitement of marrying James, but the more I thought about it, the more I realized that it wasn't just the prenup. It was everything. I looked at the clock. It was almost time to start getting ready for the ceremony. I had been in my room all morning, pacing, trying to decide what to do. I wasn't sure if I could walk down the aisle with this heavy weight on my shoulders. I needed to talk to James. I had to know what he really thought. Was he really on my side? Or was this all a lie? I grabbed my phone and sent him a message, "Can we talk? I need to understand what's going on." His reply came almost instantly, "Of course, I'll be there in a few minutes." I felt a flicker of hope. Maybe we could work this out. Maybe I was just panicking. But deep down, I knew that something wasn't right. I sat on the edge of the bed, trying to steady my breath. I had waited for this day for so long, but now I wasn't sure I was ready. What if marrying James meant accepting a life where his mother called the shots? What if I would always come second to her? A knock on the door startled me. I stood up quickly, wiping the tears from my face. I opened it to find James standing there, his face full of concern. "Hey, you okay?" he asked softly, stepping inside. I shook my head, not trusting myself to speak. He took a step closer and took my hands in his. "Rachel, what's going on? You've been so distant today." I looked up at him, feeling my chest tighten. "James, I don't know if I can do this." His brow furrowed. "Do what?" "Marry you," I said, my voice trembling. "I feel like I'm about to walk down the aisle, but there's this huge wall between us." He stepped back, clearly stunned. "What do you mean?" "What wall?" "Your mother," I said, my voice breaking. "I don't think I can marry into a family where I'm not respected. She gave me a prenup right before the wedding, James. She doesn't trust me. She doesn't trust us." James looked like I had slapped him. "She did what?" "She handed me the prenup yesterday, James. I thought we were starting our life together, but now it feels like she's trying to control everything, even before we're married." I saw a flash of anger in his eyes, but it quickly faded. He ran his hand through his hair and sat down on the edge of the bed. "I don't know what to say, Rachel. I had no idea she was doing this. I swear, I thought everything was fine." I crossed my arms, feeling more frustrated by the second. "Well, clearly it's not fine." I stood up, pacing the room. "I don't even know who I'm marrying anymore. You say you're on my side, but where are you when it matters? Why are you letting her do this? Rachel, I love you. But this is my family. You knew how my mom was before we even got engaged. I knew she was controlling, but I didn't know she would go this far." He was silent for a moment, his hands clenched into fists. "I didn't know she would do this. I'm sorry. I should have said something sooner." "It's too late for apologies," I said quietly, my heart heavy. "I can't keep living in this shadow. I thought we were building something together, but now I feel like I'm just a pawn in her game." He looked up at me, his face softening. "I'm sorry, Rachel. I never wanted you to feel like this. I'll talk to her. I'll fix this, I promise." But as he said those words, I couldn't help but wonder if it was too late. I had already started to feel like I was losing him to her. I looked at him, trying to find the strength to believe him, but it wasn't there. Maybe it was my fault for not seeing this sooner. Maybe I had been too blinded by love to see the truth. "I don't know if I can marry you tomorrow, James," I said, my voice small. "Not like this. Not when. I feel like I'm walking into a battle I can't win." His eyes widened, and for the first time today, I saw real fear in them. Please don't say that. Please don't leave me now. But it wasn't just about leaving him. It was about leaving the life I thought I had, the future I thought we shared. Could I really marry him, knowing that his mother would always be in control? I didn't have the answers. All I had were questions. And right now, that was enough to make me reconsider everything I thought I knew about love and family. The night before the wedding, I found myself staring at my reflection in the mirror, my fingers trembling as I adjusted the lace on my dress. The room was quiet, almost too quiet. It should have been a night of excitement, of last-minute jitters before the big day, but instead, it felt like I was standing on the edge of something much bigger, something I couldn't control. The weight of the prenup still lingered in my mind, heavy and suffocating. I thought about what James had said, about how he promised to fix everything, to make it right. But could he? Could I really believe that things would change, that he would stand up to his mother and choose me? Or was this just another empty promise? I didn't know. And the uncertainty gnawed at me, the way a storm builds before it breaks. I heard a knock at the door, and I turned to find James standing there. His eyes were tired, his face drawn, but there was something else in his expression, something I hadn't seen before. "Can we talk?" he asked, his voice soft but firm. I nodded, stepping back to let him in. He closed the door behind him and stood there for a moment, his hands at his sides, his shoulders tense. "Rachel, I've been thinking about everything," he began, his voice cracking just slightly. "I don't want you to feel like this, like you're being forced into something." He paused, searching for the right words. "I've been blind to how controlling my mom can be. I thought I was doing the right thing, trying to keep the peace, trying to make everyone happy. But I see now that I've been putting you last, and that's not fair to you." I swallowed hard, the emotions flooding back. "James, I don't know if I can do this. I don't know if I can marry you tomorrow, knowing that your mother is going to keep trying to control everything." He stepped closer, his voice growing more urgent. I know I should have done something sooner. But I swear, Rachel, I'm on your side now. I've been thinking about it all day, and I know what I have to do." I met his gaze, waiting for him to continue. "I'm going to talk to her. I'm going to tell her that this stops now, that we're getting married, and that she has no say in our future." My heart skipped a beat. "You're going to stand up to her?" I asked, the doubt still clear in my voice. He nodded, his expression firm. "I am. I don't want you to feel like you're just some part of the family's business. You're my wife now, and I need to protect you." For the first time all day, I felt a spark of hope. Maybe this could work. Maybe he really did understand. But there was still a part of me that wasn't sure, a part of me that was scared. Could I really trust him to follow through? Could we really have a future together if his mother was always going to be a shadow over our relationship? I didn't know. But in that moment, all I could do was take a deep breath and nod. "Okay," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. "Okay, I trust you." He smiled softly and took my hand, squeezing it gently. "I love you, Rachel. I'll fix this. We'll fix this." I wanted to believe him. I really did. But deep down, I couldn't help but wonder if the damage had already been done. The thought of starting a life with James, with Margaret's shadow looming over us, felt almost impossible. But maybe, just maybe, we could find a way to make it work. I looked at him, taking in his words, his promise. It wasn't perfect, and I wasn't sure how it would all play out, but for the first time today, I felt like maybe there was hope. Maybe we could still have the life we wanted, despite everything. The wedding was tomorrow. And for the first time, I didn't feel like I was walking into it alone. The morning of the wedding arrived, and everything was set in motion. The flowers were delivered, the caterers were setting up, and the guests were starting to fill the venue. Yet, in the midst of all this, I could hardly focus on the excitement. My thoughts kept circling back to last night, to James's words, his promise to stand up to his mother. I wanted to believe him. I wanted to believe that today could still be a fresh start for us, despite everything that had happened in the last 24 hours. But doubt lingered like a shadow in the back of my mind. I had just finished getting dressed when I received a text from James, "I'm here. Let's talk." I took a deep breath, trying to steady myself. I had spent the morning with my bridesmaids, but it felt like my heart wasn't in it. All I could think about was the conversation I had with James last night. Would he really confront his mother? Or would he back down once again? I left the dressing room, my heels clicking on the floor as I made my way to the garden where James was waiting. He was standing near the edge, looking out over the small pond. The sunlight caught his hair, and for a moment, he looked just like the man I had fallen in love with. But the moment I walked up to him, I saw the tension in his shoulders, the unease in his eyes. "James," I said softly, "we need to talk." He turned to face me, his face a mixture of nerves and determination. "I know," he replied, "but I need you to trust me." My stomach churned. "I do trust you, but I don't know if I can trust what's about to happen." He took my hands in his grip tight. "Rachel, I swear, I'm going to talk to her. I'm going to tell her that we're not going to let her control us." I looked into his eyes, trying to read him. I wanted to believe him. I wanted to believe that he meant it this time. But a small voice inside me kept saying, "What if he doesn't? What if it's all just talk?" "I'm scared, James," I admitted, my voice barely above a whisper. "I'm scared that if we go through with this, things are never going to change. I'm scared that you'll always be caught in the middle, between me and her." His expression softened, and he pulled me into an embrace. "I'm not going to let her tear us apart," he said. "I love you, Rachel. And that's the only thing that matters. I'm going to fix this. For us." I closed my eyes, feeling the warmth of his arms around me. In that moment, I wanted to believe him. I wanted to believe that everything would be okay. But there was still a part of me, a small part, that wasn't sure. What if things didn't change? What if this was just another false promise? I pulled away, trying to clear my head. "James, if we do this, if we go through with the wedding today, things have to change. It can't go back to the way it was. I can't live like this, feeling like I'm always second to your mother." He nodded, his expression serious. "I know, Rachel. I swear to you, I will make it right." I took a deep breath. "Then let's do this. But it's not just about today. It's about the rest of our lives. We have to be on the same team." He smiled, the tension easing from his face. "We are, Rachel. I promise you, we are." I nodded, a flicker of hope lighting up in my chest. Maybe, just maybe, we could make it work. The ceremony was about to start. I stood together, smiling for pictures. I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. It was supposed to be one of the happiest days of my life, but all I could think about was the tension between James and me, the unresolved issues, and the shadow of his mother hanging over us. The guests were chatting, laughter filled the air, but I felt like an outsider in my own celebration. I kept glancing at James, but he was preoccupied, talking to his friends, shaking hands with family members. His mother, Margaret, was in the center of it all, orchestrating everything, as usual. I tried to focus on the moment, to enjoy being with the people I loved, but every time I looked at James, I felt the distance between us. I had expected more from him. I had expected him to stand by me, to put us first. But instead, it felt like I was fighting alone, like he was still caught in his mother's web. I excused myself and stepped outside for some air. The cool night hit my skin like a breath of fresh air, but it didn't calm the storm inside me. I couldn't stop thinking about the conversation I had with James this morning. His promises had been so convincing, but the doubts were still there. Would he really stand up to his mother? Or was this just another moment where I was expected to take a back seat? I felt a hand on my shoulder and turned to see James standing behind me. "Rachel, there you are," he said, his voice softer than before. "We need to talk." I looked at him, searching his face for something, anything that would make me believe that he was truly on my side. But the doubt still lingered. "I don't know if I can do this, James." Future with him, and now it felt like everything was crumbling around me. "I want to trust you, James," I said, my voice barely a whisper. "But your mother has made me feel like I don't matter, like I'm just a guest in this family, not your wife." He reached for my hand, holding it gently. "I'm sorry, Rachel. I didn't see it before, but I see it now. I'll talk to her. I'll set things straight." His words were soothing, but my heart still ached. Was it enough? Could he really change things between us and his mother? Could we really move forward after all this? The uncertainty lingered, like a shadow I couldn't shake. "I don't know if I can believe you anymore," I said, looking away, afraid of what I might see in his eyes. "I don't know if I can keep living in this fear that your mother will always come first." He pulled me into his arms, holding me tightly. "I won't let her come between us, Rachel. I won't let anyone tear us apart." I closed my eyes, letting myself feel the warmth of his embrace. But in the back of my mind, I knew that this was just the beginning. I knew that the fight wasn't over, that the road ahead would be full of challenges. I didn't know if I could face it all, but for now, I just needed to hold on to the hope that maybe, just maybe, we could figure it out together. As we stood there in silence, I realized that this wedding was only the start of our journey. The real test would come later. As involved as ever, making her opinions known at every turn, and I began to feel like a guest in my own marriage. The more I tried to push for answers, the more James seemed to pull away, caught in the middle between me and his mother. I started to question whether I was asking for too much. "Off? I'm not asking you to cut her off, James. I'm asking you to put us first. I need you to stop letting her control everything." The silence between us stretched on, heavy and uncomfortable. I could see the conflict in his eyes, the battle between his love for his mother and his love for me. "I just don't know if I can do that," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. I felt my heart break a little more with each word. "Then maybe we're not on the same page," I said softly, the pain of it making my chest ache. "Maybe I'm asking for too much, but I can't keep living in this uncertainty." He stood up, his hands shaking slightly. "I'm trying, Rachel. I really am." But his words didn't bring me any comfort. I had heard it all before. "I can't do this anymore, James. I can't keep pretending like everything is okay when it's not." His face paled, and for a moment, I thought he might cry. But he didn't. Instead, he just nodded slowly, as if accepting the reality of the situation. "I don't know what to say," he said, his voice hollow. "Then don't say anything," I replied, my voice barely audible. I stood up and walked past him, my heart heavy with the weight of the words I hadn't wanted to say. As I reached the door, I paused for a moment. "Maybe we need some time apart," I said, my voice trembling. He didn't respond. He didn't need to. We both knew that something had shifted, that the distance between us was now too great to ignore. I walked out of the room, my footsteps echoing in the silence that had settled between us. I didn't know what the future held anymore. I didn't know if we could fix this. All I knew was that I couldn't keep living like this, trapped in the middle of a tug-of-war between the man I loved and the woman who had controlled his life for so long. The next few days felt like I was stuck in a never-ending cycle. James and I barely spoke. The distance between us was now impossible to ignore, and no amount of words seemed to bridge the gap. I kept telling myself that things would get better, that maybe this was just a rough patch, but deep down, I couldn't shake the feeling that we were unraveling. Margaret's presence still loomed over everything, even though she wasn't physically there. It was like a dark cloud that followed us wherever we went, reminding me of the invisible strings that still held James tightly in place. I knew I had to make a decision. I couldn't keep living like this, torn between loving James and feeling like I was always second to his mother. I needed clarity, and I needed it soon. One afternoon, as I was sitting in the living room, trying to focus on something, anything, to distract myself, I heard a knock on the door. I stood up quickly, surprised by the sound. I hadn't been expecting anyone. When I opened the door, I found James standing there, his face serious, his eyes filled with something I hadn't seen in a while, determination. "Can we talk?" he asked, his voice softer than usual. I stepped aside, letting him in. As he walked past me, I couldn't help but notice the tension in his shoulders, the weight of something unspoken. We sat down together, but the silence between us felt heavier than ever. He was the first to speak. "I've been thinking a lot about what happened," he said, his voice low. "I know I've let you down, Rachel. I know I've failed you in so many ways. But I'm not going to let my mom come between us anymore." My heart skipped a beat. This was the moment I had been waiting for, the moment when I could finally hear him say the words I needed to hear. But even as he said them, a part of me was still hesitant. Could I really trust him? Could we really move forward after everything? "I don't want to lose you," he continued, his voice breaking slightly. "I know I haven't been perfect, and I've made a lot of mistakes, but I love you. And I want to fight for us." I wanted to believe him. I wanted to feel the same hope I had felt before, but the doubt was still there, lingering in the back of my mind. "How do I know this is real, James?" I asked, my voice trembling. "How do I know this isn't just another empty promise?" He reached for my hand, his grip warm and steady. "I'm not going to let her control us anymore, Rachel. I'm going to talk to her again, and I'm going to set boundaries. I'll do whatever it takes to prove to you that I'm serious." I looked at him, searching his face for any sign of doubt, but all I saw was sincerity. For the first time in a long while, I felt like he was really here, really present, and that maybe, just maybe, he was ready to fight for us. And what if she doesn't listen? What if she refuses to respect our boundaries? I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. He paused for a moment, his eyes thoughtful. "Then we deal with it together. We don't let her control us, Rachel. Not anymore." His words were like a lifeline, pulling me back from the edge of despair. I took a deep breath, the weight of everything I had been holding on to slowly beginning to lift. I didn't know what the future held, but in that moment, I realized something. Maybe the road ahead wouldn't be easy. Maybe there would be more fights, more challenges. But if James was really ready to stand up to his mother, to put us first, then maybe, just maybe, we could make it work. "I'm scared, James," I admitted, the words coming out in a rush. "I'm scared that this won't work, that we'll fall apart." He squeezed my hand, his gaze softening. "I'm scared too, Rachel. But I'm not giving up on us. I promise." The tears I had been holding back finally started to fall, and for the first time in days, I felt like I could breathe again. Maybe we could fix this. Maybe we could find a way to move forward. And maybe, just maybe, we could have the life we had always dreamed of, without the constant shadow of his mother. As James held me close, I realized that this was only the beginning of our journey. The real work would come in the days ahead, but for the first time in a long time, I felt like we were both ready to face it together. Weeks passed, and things slowly started to shift. James kept his word, and little by little, he began setting boundaries with his mother. It wasn't easy. Margaret fought him every step of the way, but he stood firm. We had our ups and downs, but each day felt like a small victory, a step forward in the right direction. We even began to find some peace in our own home again, with fewer moments of tension, though I knew this was only the beginning. It wasn't perfect. There were still times when I felt like Margaret's shadow was too close, that her opinion still crept into our conversations. But James was different now, and I could see that he was trying. The distance between us had lessened, and I could finally see the man I had married again, the man I had fallen in love with. I could finally see a future where we weren't constantly at war with his family. One night, after a long day of work, we sat down on the couch together. James was scrolling through his phone, but I could tell his mind was somewhere else. I nudged him gently, and he looked up, offering a tired smile. "What's on your mind?" I asked, setting aside my own thoughts. He paused for a moment, clearly thinking about how to respond. "I'm just glad," he said quietly, "that we're getting through this. I know it hasn't been easy, but I feel like we're on the right track." I smiled softly, my heart swelling with warmth. "Me too," I replied. "I know it's been a tough road, but we're stronger for it. I think we've finally found our footing." He reached out, taking my hand in his. "I've realized something through all this," he said, his voice steady. "I was so focused on trying to make everyone happy, on keeping the peace, that I lost sight of what really mattered. You matter, Rachel. And I should have put you first all along." His words were exactly what I had needed to hear. It was the reassurance I had been waiting for, the confirmation that we were truly moving forward together. I squeezed his hand, my voice barely a whisper. "Thank you for saying that. It means more than you know." He leaned in and kissed me gently on the forehead. "I love you, Rachel. And I'm never going to let you feel like you come second again." I closed my eyes for a moment, letting the weight of his words sink in. We had been through so much, and while I knew there would still be challenges ahead, I finally felt like we could face them as a team. Our future no longer felt uncertain. It felt full of possibility. The next morning, I woke up early, the sun just beginning to rise. I could hear James moving around the kitchen, preparing breakfast. I smiled, feeling a sense of peace that had been absent for so long. When I walked into the kitchen, he looked up at me, his face lighting up. "Good morning, beautiful," he said, his voice full of warmth. "Good morning," I replied, walking over to him. "What's this? You're up early." "I was thinking about what you said last night," he said, his eyes soft. "About us finally finding our footing. And I realized that I don't want to wait another day to show you how much you mean to me." I laughed softly, feeling my heart swell. "Well, I'm glad you're on the same page." He smiled and handed me a cup of coffee, and as I took it from him, I realized that this was the life I had always wanted. A life built on trust, on love, and on putting each other first. There would be more challenges, more things to navigate with his family, but I knew that together, we could handle anything. For the first time in a long time, I felt truly hopeful about the future. As James and I sat down to breakfast, I knew that no matter what came next, we were in this together. And that was all that mattered.